Good morning. My name is Tony Minoz, and I am one of the parish coordinators who has worked with the safety protocols that we received from the Archdiocese of Hartford to safely open our churches for masses at the weekends. I'd like to take you on a little tour of what we have provided for you to show you some of those safety measures. We are here on the east side of the church, and we recommend that you park in the east parking lot, which is the closest adjacent to the disabled door, and that is the door we will be using for all entering and exiting to the church. As you can see, the cones and the snow rods have been placed socially distanced, so when you arrive at the church, we ask you to line up according to those snow cones according to the cones and the snow rods. Also keep that distancing as you walk into the church. It's for creating a safe environment for you. We have many volunteers that you'll be meeting along the way, and one of them is the one that will remind you that it is a good idea for you to sanitize your hands before you enter the church building. So as you see, we have sanitizers that are available before you enter the door. We also have an automatic sanitizer just inside the door. So either way, you can use those sanitizers to help you. I'm going to walk down and show you that we will also meet other guides, and one of them will be the person who is going to count and keep track of our attendance. So let's go into the church. The guide that will be monitoring our attendance will be standing here and will count, and our capacity to seat safely is 96. We have 66 people that can be seated in the nave of the church or the center of the church, and 30 that will be seated in the west transept. The next guide that you will meet is someone who will actually help you to be seated and escort you to the seats. As you can see, the aisles are labeled with arrows so that when you enter, you will be escorted down the east aisle and be seated accordingly. The seats are arranged so that we have one empty seat and then two that are corded off. Another empty seat and two that are corded off. That is the pattern that you will see in the nave of the church and also in the west transept. Now the first row is typically reserved for those who are disabled, and so those that use walkers or those that are elderly and can't walk the distance of the church are welcome to sit here as usual. The seats are also labeled. There are markings on the floor that will show you where to sit. So there are 3 seats available in each open row. So one is on the aisle, the east aisle, one is in the middle, and one is on the west aisle. And that also creates that safe distancing, which we are committed to. Those that may come in that have wheelchairs, we're going to seat you along the glass doors of the chapel. That is comfortable seating for our parishioners and easy access for the pastor to come and serve you communion. Now the church has been divided into sections, and it's going to be important for you to have knowledge of that, because we are using it as we enter the church, we're using it to serve communion, and we're using it when we exit the church. So this side of the church, the east side, we are calling the Blessed Mother side because of the Blessed Mother statue that's before us. And the west side of the church we are referring to as the St. Joseph side because of the St. Joseph statue. The transept also has names, and we have the north side, which I like to think is closest to I-91 North, that takes me north, and the south side takes me to the beautiful Connecticut shoreline. So that's the way that I keep them separated. So you'll be seated accordingly. You're going to be seated in the east, the Blessed Mother side first, and when that is all filled to our capacity, we will move to the St. Joseph side. You will enter the pew and you will go to the farthest point so that no one needs to walk over one another. That's another safety precaution. The Archbishop reminds us that we may not be sitting in the seat that we have sat in for years, but we do promise you, you will be seated safely. So when the Blessed Mother side is finished and the St. Joseph side is also finished to capacity, we move into the transept, and the south side transept will be seated first, and then the north side transept. Now we'll remember those sides also when we have distribution of communion. So come over and let's see how the floor is marked for that. by the Archbishop's Committee, and our sexton, Phil Pasternak, has replicated that very well, very accurately, and very safely. The guides will guide you out of your pew row by row. The disabled people, of course, will remain seated, and Father will give them communion. But if you're in the next open row, you're going to come up, and you also notice that down the aisle we have the markings as well, also 6-foot distancing. So when you are coming up, you need to also stay in that spot. So the first person will come forward, second person, so forth. So the first person coming to communion will come up to this box. Father will be right in front of you. Father Moran will be giving communion to the main church. The minister will be giving communion. One minister will be giving communion at the transept. We're going to ask you to position your hands palm over palm. That makes it easy for Father to drop the host inside your hand. If you curl your fingers, that impedes Father from a safe drop of the Eucharist into your hand. Also, if you raise your hand, and you probably think you're helping to help Father to drop the host, that actually also interferes with him trying to give you the host safely. If Father inadvertently touches your hand, he must stop giving communion, sanitize his hands, which you see right here. We have a table provided for him and sanitizer. He must sanitize his hands and then continue giving communion. So if you take this hand position and just outstretch your hands a bit, it creates a fine way for Father to serve you communion. And when you do that, you're going to come up with your mask on, because of course our masks have to be in place all through the liturgy. You come up with your mask on, Father will drop the host. Then you are to turn and come to the second box. Face forward. Now notice that I have not lowered my mask. I haven't done anything to receive communion yet, because all of those actions need to take place in this box, and you need to look forward. So then you would drop your mask, consume the host, raise your mask again, and then simply follow the arrows to return to your pew. If you're coming up from the St. Joseph side, you're going to come again here in the box, position your hands, take communion from Father, move to the next box. Notice that you're not doing any action whatsoever until I get to this box, and I'm going to look forward. And I'm going to drop my mask, take communion, raise my mask, and then proceed this way, following the arrow down to your pew. Now the reason for looking forward all the time is for your own protection, for protection of the people around you. If you start moving from the box and never lower your mask in front of the priest, for certain. And if you start moving here, people are going to be impacted that are sitting near you. That are standing, sitting, kneeling near you. So you need to always keep covered until you reach this box and then perform all the actions to actually consume the host. And those are guidelines that were definitely laid out, set out for us by the Archbishop's Committee. So we are following them as well as we can, and we ask for cooperation, and it is for your safety. So we ask you to follow those directions. So when the Blessed Mother side has finished communion, then the guides will then open up to the St. Joseph side, and you will also come up row by row. Now simultaneously, the West Transept is also receiving communion. So the south side will come out into their main aisle. We can walk over, and we're going to see that we have the same markings here. And as you notice, there's the table for the minister to use. There will be sanitizer there. And should the minister unintentionally touch your hand, then he or she also must stop giving communion, sanitize hands, and then continue serving. So the south side will come out into the main aisle of the transept, come up to this box as well. The minister is in front of you. Hand position is important. You're, of course, having your mask on. So your hands are here. You're coming from the south side. So after you receive the host, you're going to walk to this box. Now notice I haven't done any action whatsoever to try to receive the Eucharist. I'm looking forward, and I'm going to lower my mask, take communion, raise my mask, and then follow the arrow back to the pew. When that section has been completed and everyone has been served communion, then we do the north side. Same thing, except you're going to move to this box. And as you can see, the transept has also been corded off with that same pattern. So those are the safety measures that we have in place for you. We think that we have done a fine job of following the directions that were provided to us, and we are ready to open our church and to have you come into a safe environment. Now you may think of all of these things and say, well, there's a lot of limitations, it seems. And some people might even say there are restrictions. But I want you to remember one thing. They are there for one purpose and one purpose only, and it is to keep you safe. And it also, all of these measures enable us to open our church, to welcome you back, and to provide you with that safe environment. So on behalf of Father Marian, our pastor, all of the Incarnation staff, and all of our volunteers, we say welcome. We are happy to have you back. We are eager to see you and celebrate Eucharist with you once again. Good day, and God bless.